This is the Matt Report, the voice of WordPress entrepreneurship. If you're running a WordPress freelance business selling themes, plugins, or client services, this is the place for you. Learn more at mattreport.com and subscribe at mattreport.com/subscribe. And now, on to the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Matt Report. On the show today, Dusty Davidson. If you follow me on YouTube and you're already subscribed on YouTube, you know that this was recorded a little time ago, and we're just hearing it now out on iTunes, SoundCloud, and the Stitcher world. But it was such a great show that you should really tune in and listen to it again. Dusty teaches us a whole heck of a lot about starting a company, and as the founder, co-founder, and CEO of Flywheel, managed WordPress hosting, he has a ton of insight to that, right? And just jumping into that aggressive, competitive scene of WordPress managed hosts and website hosts alone, up against some real major competition there. So he teaches us a lot about focusing on the customer, designing and creating an amazing product, and then providing ultimate support for the customer and for potential customers coming in. So definitely a good listen. I really hope you enjoy this episode with Dusty. Keep going with the 5-star reviews on iTunes. You can find me if you just search for Matt Report on iTunes. Go ahead and leave a 5-star if this show is really helping you out finding your way in the WordPress world, or if you're just jumping into being a sort of web freelancer, design or development. We talk to all sorts of folks from around the globe doing this stuff, so they've got some great stories to share. And as always, mattreport.com/subscribe. Join the mailing list. If you want to keep the show ad-free, the best way to do it is mattreport.com/join. It's a membership system set up on the Matt Report where it's like support for your WordPress business or your digital agency. Other freelancers and agency owners in there, you ask the question in the forums that you might have trouble with, or you might want to jump on one of our monthly mastermind calls to talk about. You can find out all that stuff at mattreport.com/join. Without further ado, let's get on to the show. And we're live. Everybody, welcome back to the Matt Report. I got lawnmowers in the background today because I'm not doing it in the studio, so I do apologize for any of that background noise. So this should be fun stuff. Hey, all-star WordPress hosting lineup roundtable team event today. Dusty Donaldson. Dusty, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
So hey, WordPress hosting, I'm just going to go right at you. Why another WordPress managed host?
Yeah, I think that's a question we get asked a lot, obviously. But if you look back, I mean, we come from a web design and development background, right? And we spent years designing and developing WordPress sites for clients. And there's 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 hosting companies out there. Not just the managed ones. Obviously, in the last couple of years, there's been a sort of prevalence of managed WordPress hosting, and some of which are very good. But the majority of hosting is kind of this race to the bottom, commodity kind of crap industry, and the workflows are broken. So like what you get is you get hosting that has been around forever and really hasn't changed, and yet people are still having to do a ton of things that we don't think they should have to do, like edit htaccess files, or share passwords with customers, or force customers to sign up for navigate a hosting website to sign up. And so we look at hosting as really fast, really secure, really robust. Hosting is kind of the minimum of what every host should provide. And where we can really add value is how do we build software and a control panel that really enhances the lives and the workflow of the people that are actually building and designing websites for clients. And so in lots of ways, Flywheel is scratching our own itch. It's, we've been in your shoes if you're a designer or developer, and we want to make that world better. And I think our mantra in lots of ways is nobody loves their hosting company. And I think if you surveyed 10 people, you'd get 10 different answers on who they host with, and 9 out of 10 of them are like neutral on it or hate. And we really want to be the hosting company that you can fall in love with. And I think that that's a really attainable thing.
It's like your cable provider, right, or your cell phone carrier. Like you're like, I got to pay them $150 a month. I don't really like what they do, but I got to do it anyway because I got no choice. What point did you was there a breaking point for you with other hosts? You don't have to mention names, but at some point you're like, you know what, this is just broken, and I'm going to set out to do something differently.
No, not really. Interestingly enough, my partners and I did, WordPress and website development years ago, and then we kind of got out of that game for a while. Well, we built a software as a service business, and when we kind of left that business, we got back and together and sort of said, it just sort of came about, as we surveyed the situation, there was, since we had done development, a lot of interesting players had come on the market, but I think, as we all know, they have very small percentages of the overall hosting market, and WordPress is growing very rapidly in and of itself. So for us, it was really just looking and saying, like, we've always had this problem, and yet as you look at the market now, here a couple of years later, it still exists. So now is kind of the time. So there wasn't really a breaking point so much as really just sitting down and saying, man, this is still a major issue. Hosting is still really backwards. We look at it and say, there's still just hosting companies, and yet actually outside of WordPress, a lot of cool things have happened, right? You look in the Ruby on Rails community, Heroku is doing really, really cool things that aren't just hosting, right? They're kind of this platform with cool software features. You look at GitHub, which has done really cool collaboration things, and lots of software and platforms have done really neat things outside of the WordPress hosting world, and yet the majority of WordPress hosting is still like $2 a month shared hosting and cPanel, which is like absurd to me. So, really it was just looking at it and saying, man, we've been out of it for a while and it's still terrible.
I want to talk about the cPanel thing, but first, I do want to apologize. I have all my Matt Report contacts lined up, and I said Donaldson for your last name. It's Davidson. It's only because
that's all right. My father-in-law still calls me Rusty, so I don't like.
It's only because I have Dave Donaldson, who just emailed me about Max Galleria plugin, and your name when I did the search was right next to him. So I do apologize. That's the first time it's ever happened to me on the show. Let's talk about cPanel. I find hosting is very interesting to me. I ran a small hosting team, part of an ISP, for about 7 years, and cPanel was the software that we use, right? This is going back 2003 to 2008, or just before 2008. So that was like the thing, right? That was like WordPress for hosting, I guess. Maybe that's a bad comparison, but
sure.
I still find cPanel to be one of those things where it's like, it's easy, it works, the person can log in and they can change their FTP password, they can set up another FTP user account. I find that it works and it does well, but then there's the back end of, hey, bloated, too much, too heavy. It's a big attack. It's a big target for attackers or spammers or malicious stuff. I guess when you looked at it, did you look at building Flywheel from a technology standpoint, like it's going to be super fast, super lightweight, it's going to use a special technology? What's the compare and contrast with that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think that we call them sort of hosting companies in a box, where anybody can put a server in a closet, install cPanel, and be a hosting company. And
I've done that, by the way.
Right? Like I think a lot of people have. And listen, there's nothing wrong with that. But we set out and said, we want to be 10 or 100x better than that. And better in hosting is weird, because like everybody talks about speed and our servers are faster, we have more RAM or things like, and we look at it and say the way that we can be 10x better is with speed and the caching and all these sorts of things that we do, but also with the experience of actually interacting with the hosting. In lots of ways, again, we're a software company, not a hosting company, and so we don't want to just install cPanel on a server and be a hosting company. We want to create real value and real software that does improve the lives and the workflows of designers and developers. And so as we look at cPanel, you have 99 or 100 icons, and you literally, if you're doing WordPress hosting, need like 4 of them. And do you really even need 4 of them? Would be my contention. The rest of it is like stuff that I think if you're listen, I'm a developer by trade, so I'm a technical guy, and I know how to modify zone files, and I know how to modify htaccess files, and sometimes I actually enjoy doing it. But my day job is servicing clients, or was servicing clients and designing and developing great websites, not mucking with server settings. And so while cPanel makes it easy for you to do that, relatively, you still have to do it. And we think that, again, in a world that is sort of standardized on WordPress, there's a ton of stuff that can just be lifted off the shoulders of people and let them focus on what they do best, which is designing and websites for clients, and working and servicing those clients. And so for us, it really was, how do we not just be a commodity host, but also how do we really improve the lives of designers and developers?
Listen, if you enjoy editing zone files and refreshing bind, you might have a problem. You might need to seek help.
Even if you can click a couple of buttons to do it, right? You still need to find out.
So you don't want to become a commodity host. When you launched, Managed WordPress hosting was very much a competitive market. Obviously, it still continues to be one. What was it like getting your first 100 clients? Did you have a strategy? Did you just throw it to the wind and say, "Look, we're just going to go out there and promote ourselves"? What was your fast track to your first 100 clients?
Yeah, I think that we have a unique take. So I should mention that Flywheel is WordPress hosting built for designers, right? Premium WordPress hosting built for designers, and it's premium WordPress hosting in the same way that other managed hosts are. We manage all the caching and the backups and the security and all of these sorts of things, and then back it with expert and friendly support. And it's built for designers in the sense that, again, we have this sort of custom software control panel that is nice to look at, but also very easy to use, and really built specifically for the workflow of people who interact with clients when they build websites. And so when we started, we launched a simple splash page to gather email addresses, and the core of it just said, "Beautiful WordPress hosting built for designers." And then we outlined the features that we were going to do, and these are features that most hosting companies didn't provide, because they're hosting companies, not software companies. And so, that garnered a ton of interest. And as we captured a ton of email addresses, and as we went to launch and into beta, then, we would pick people off the list that were interesting, and we'd call them on the phone, and we'd say, "We really want to talk to you about, the workflow that you have, and how Flywheel can fit into that." And you hear recurring themes over and over and over again. And after we'd talked to about 100 people, then we launched the beta version, and sort of started there. And again, we target designers in the way. It's what's funny about Flywheel is it seems like niche hosting, right? It's sort of like WordPress hosting built for designers seems like WordPress hosting built for flower shops, and at the same time, we don't think that, because we're targeting designers, and our goal is to be great partners with them, and provide them with great software and support and service, so that they in turn launch all of their client sites on Flywheel. And so, once we had a dozen design partners early on, those dozen design partners probably represented 100 sites.
Mm-hmm. Can you give us one concrete example of how you reached out to these first maybe dozen or so designers? Did you go to an event? Did you sponsor an event? Did you just cold call, email? What was your tactic for finding these first 12?
Yeah, so I should back up and say we're sort of deeply rooted in the design and development community in the Midwest. We're based in Omaha, Nebraska, so a lot of the early conversations were with our friends, obviously, and so that probably was a kickstart. But beyond that, it was inbound interest. It was people who said, "Wow, what you guys are doing, or what it seems like you're going to do, really matches with what I'm interested in. Beautiful WordPress hosting built for designers. That really resonates with me. Like, hosting companies are typically very technical and very like pictures of servers, and you guys have pictures of people and beautiful spaces and things." And that really resonated with them. So it started with this sort of inbound interest, and then we just reach back out and say, "Hey, thanks for signing up for Flywheel, or thanks for your interest in Flywheel. We'd love to talk to you and just listen to what you're doing and what frustrations you have with hosting. And so it was a very sort of it wasn't cold calling in any way, although we're not above that. It was in the early days very much just kind of responding to this inbound interest. And so for some reason, what the messaging resonated to create that interest.
Would you still consider your platform primarily focused on still on designers and possibly developers now? And would you sort of say, yeah, you know what, I think designers and developers can certainly recommend or refer their Joe Schmo client to use our software? Or are you still primarily focused on sort of the designer and the developer as far as a target market?
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you're a hosting company, the way that you market, GoDaddy markets to everyone by taking out Super Bowl ads. Like, that's how they sort of market, right? They don't have a target, they just market to everyone with like a lot of money. If you're a hosting company in a box, like how you differentiate is really hard, we think, right? Like if you're selling to the end user, it's really hard. And you see lots of hosting companies do different things. For us, it's really how do we build a platform that resonates with designers and developers and really go after them really hard, because we think that the way to actually get to every end user on the planet and to host every WordPress site on the planet is to go to the people who actually build and design those websites.
So the other burning question, this one comes from Carrie Dills out in the audience, and this is from other folks in the WordPress community that I actually emailed you about the other day. When will there be an affiliate program for Flywheel?
Yeah, it's great. So it's in the works, and this is something we've wanted to do for a long time. We treat the affiliate program, I think, differently than a lot of people. We look at it in one of two ways. One would be that you refer another designer to Flywheel, and then you get paid for any sort of work that they do for their clients. The other is that you just refer your clients. And the really kind of cool thing about Flywheel is that the way that it works, traditional, I think, affiliate programs, I give you a link. If you're my client, I give you a link that has my code in it, and you click on it, and then you go sign up, and then I set you up on that hosting. And we've always thought that felt a little, especially when you're doing it for clients, a little awkward. And so with Flywheel, the nature of it is that you just create sites, and then you can easily transfer them to clients. And so the Flywheel affiliate program will take a referral program will take that into account. So you don't have to pass around these links to get credit for that. It's in the works. We'll say within, I don't like to commit to time frames, but we'll say this summer. We've got a lot of things in the works, and there's a lot of things people are asking for, and I'd say affiliate program is at or near the top.
One of the things that I noticed from your site is you say that you're still a very small team. About how many people are running with you right now?
We're 12 right now. So
nice. Is that your current sort of roadblock, or is it marketing? Is it growth? Or is it just finding the right people? And do you have any strategy for growing your team? Like, are you trying to keep it small purposely, or what's your thoughts on that?
No, I mean, the challenge with growth for us, at the risk of sounding like woe is us, is that as a small team, we're signing up so many customers, and we care so much about support that all effort goes into sort of providing amazing support to those customers and that ever-growing customer pool, while at the same time trying to onboard engineers and onboard more support people and onboard marketing people. So it's sort of like this weird flux there. But for us, because support's so critical, it sort of all defaults to support. And unfortunately, that means that in this sort of weird interim time, product things kind of get put on hold, which is fine. Those are solvable problems, and we're growing the team now pretty quickly. We definitely have no intention of being a small team forever. I think that the way that you provide amazing support over time and at scale is to have a ton of people. I think the way that you roll out a ton of amazing features is to have an amazing engineering team. I think that a lot of those sorts of things. So we absolutely are growing very quickly, and you'll see, I think, as a result of the people growth over the next 3 or 6 months, you'll see a lot of new features and continue to provide amazing support.
Hey, one of the features that's always missing from managed WordPress hosting, and I think I already know the answer, but I'd like to get uh, your response is, what about email? Why not email? Why not provide email? What do you do in the case of email?
Yeah, so we get this question a lot. We actually used to get it more than we do now. We believe very strongly in being a best-of-breed partner. So we believe that we're the best WordPress host that you can choose, and we believe that Google Apps is the best email provider you can use. We believe that Hover.com is the best domain provider you can use. Like these are things that your traditional hosting company just says we do it all, and what happens is they kind of do it all badly, right? cPanel on a box and run their email off of it, and the challenge there is it's just not good email, and it's not good domain registering, and it's not good hosting, and so we look at it and say we want to be your WordPress hosting partner, and we recommend sort of best-of-breed partners in lots of ways. And so that's our theory on it at this point. We're not married to that. In the future, we look at things and say, how can we improve the lives of designers and developers, first and foremost, and their workflows, and two, do things that we can be experts at. We know that we can be experts at WordPress hosting. If in the future we can be experts at email, then maybe we do that. But right now, sort of singular focused on the thing that we know best and the thing that we can provide the best service for.
If you think that web hosting is a sort of love-hate relationship with customer and service provider, email is like 10x that, because nobody wants to pay for it, but everybody wants it, and everybody wants it to work 100% of the time. Spam, delivery, message size, inbox archive size, but not willing to pay for it.
Well, you're right, and I think a lot of these things, I think there's been a lot of bad behaviors created over the last, let's say, 10 or 15 years with sort of commodity hosting, and it's been kind of a race to say who can add the most stuff and who can out unlimited the next guy. Yeah. And I think that has created really bad behaviors. One behavior that we see and that's both on the technical side, like an expectation that I need to muck with settings in order for things to work, right? That's a bad behavior that's been created by the fact that you just had to do that for the last 10 years. The other bad behavior is to just expect the world for $0. And we believe that we charge a fair price for a premium product. I think Google Apps is the same way. Like Google Apps charges, and it's a bill that I don't mind paying every month because email is maybe the single tool that I use most in my life. Like I probably spend more time in Google Apps than I do on anything else. And so I'm fine paying $5 a month for it. But making that mindset shift is hard. And what I think that the managed WordPress hosts have done over the last 3, 4, 5 years is start to change that mindset around hosting at least. And my hope would be that you start to see a shift towards paying a fair price for a great product in every category. And you see this a lot on your show and stuff. Like these are people that are running businesses, and they build good products that they want to sell for a fair price. And I think that there's no reason to think that hosting and email and these sorts of things should be any different.
A lot of the figureheads in the WordPress community have been very vocal about pricing their product, be it a plugin or a theme, and sort of falling back to, are we going to charge folks for support, for updates, and how do we do this? What's your advice to somebody who's out there who's about to launch their first plugin? Instead of the all-you-can-eat forever infinity for $50, what should these, from your perspective, from where you're sitting, where should these folks position themselves as far as support and pricing and updates, things like that? I mean, should the community as a whole start moving to this sort of monthly support model for their products or something different?
Yeah, I think it's really challenging. I really love recurring revenue models, like just in general, whether it's hosting or software as a service or these sorts of things. So, my advice, and it's not applicable to all products, right, is to find a world in which the value that you provide creates a sense that I'm willing to pay for it over time for the product itself. I guess the next best thing would be to say that the value that you provide in support is is something that I'd be willing to pay over time. And then like to me, third is obviously that if I'm only paying one time, that I'm on a development and feature schedule, and my features create enough incremental value over time that your user base will want to upgrade time and time and time again. Kind of in that order for me. And it's really hard. This like the recurring sort of revenue SaaS model is probably the most interesting because the support one's hard because nobody wants to pay for support, and then they complain when the support's crappy and or when they don't get answers and sort of these sorts of things. And so again, we believe in sort of paying a fair price. We pay for lots and lots of services and lots of plugins and lots of things that we believe again in sort of paying a fair price for it. And if they can continue to provide value for us, we'll continue to pay.
Is there a particular scenario where you're dealing with one of your clients and there's a particular plugin that they're trying to use on your platform that you don't have to name names again, but something you looked at, gee, I really wish these plugin developers did this. It would be so much better. Or maybe if they charge more, they'd have more frequent updates, and this wouldn't happen. Has that ever started to come into play with your staff yet?
I don't. Maybe. I mean, what's interesting is on the plugins where. On the low end, I wish that some of these plugins were actually maintained and that they were premium plugins, and that's probably typically where it falls. Is you get a ton of free ones that I wish were premium plugins. I wish cost money because they would just be better in general. There's a lot more effort put towards them. Most of the premium plugins are really good, and we know a lot of their support staff and a lot of these folks, and we work with them closely to sort of work through issues. And so I think on the on the sort of premium end, most of them are really good. And I wish them success so they can continue to provide support and features and upgrades and things. But yeah, I mean, there's a ton of them that are really good that are free that you kind of are looking at and saying like they're either like ad supported or other models that or donations, and you're kind of, I wish that somebody could have a full-time commitment to this, because I think it would make, in most cases, it would just make the end user's life easier, because I think that, I mean, we can figure it out on our end. Again, we sort of try and take the technical burden off of our customers, and in the cases where they actually call us or email us, we do that for them. But there's a lot of cases where they don't, and I think the end user who's non-technical sort of sits there in the middle and just kind of is frustrated because a lot of the plugins is frustrated with the plugins that don't provide that level of support on some side, and then they don't call us or they don't use us, so they're kind of like stuck in purgatory in a way.
Awesome. Hey, if you're in the audience just watching the show, go ahead and drop your questions into the right-hand column. You can drop those questions in there, and I will get those answered during the show. Back to this topic, though, about sort of, hey, you might start out free, you might start giving away your plugin, and eventually you need support, and eventually you might start charging people. I'd assume it was very much like that for your own company. Like maybe in the beginning you were doing everything manually. A request came through, you actually configured the Apache logs or Nginx or whatever you're using. You actually made all the accounts, you did everything by hand, and maybe now you've kind of reinvested into an automated process. True, false? How does that work for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think everybody starts or at least tries to start in a place where the smallest amount of things possible. And for us it was that, right? Hosting's a weird thing. We talk about, like, you can have a server in a closet in your hosting company, and though I joke about that, that's kind of how we started. But that's partially so that we could talk to customers, and what would happen is talk to customers and they'd be like, yes, I want it, and we're like, we don't have exactly what we'd said yet, but we can host your site, and they'd be like, oh, okay, and then the features are coming in the future, and so that was a lot of it in the beginning for sure. We also believe very strongly in I think Paul Graham said it right, in doing things that don't scale. So a lot of people get really really caught up in, well, can I provide support at scale, or can I can I install software at scale, or all these sorts of things, and we look at it and say, let's do it manual now, and it's hard, but that's fine. And what it does is we sort of like learn where the pain points are, and we learn like how we need to automate things, and so we look at a lot of things in that way.
Did you have a different thought, or maybe sort of, I don't want to say a backup plan, but let's say when you launched and you were like, look, we're going to do everything manual right now. We're going to launch a minimum viable product. And if this doesn't work, maybe we'll pivot to something else. Did you ever have that thought in your mind, or did you set out with that, or are you just like, nope, this is what we're going with, and this is what we're going to stick with?
I mean, your head's always on a swivel, right? Like it's you start down a path, and we have the benefit of having come from this world, right? In lots of ways, we're building a product for ourselves, and so going and listening to customers is validation in more ways than discovery. And so and it's discovery in so much as you hear things that are like, wow, we didn't actually think about that, but we know exactly what you're talking about. But it's validation in that way. So for us, it was kind of, let's validate that indeed people would pay for premium hosting, and indeed people's workflows seem backwards just like ours was, and indeed all these sorts of things. And so I don't know that there was ever a plan B or whatever. It was just kind of like, it made sense to us because this is the world we come from. And we, I talked to a lot of entrepreneurs, and I was always envious of the ones who did that. My previous software company sold software to restaurants. I'm not a restaurant guy, but so it was a different configuration. When we built it, we did have to go sort of like learn from people. What do you do in a restaurant? It was like, and this was less that. So there was less, I think, concern or around, do we have a backup plan? I'd say that, the majority of our original assumptions are still in place. They've molded, they've sort of migrated somewhat, but a lot of them are still the core of what we talk about.
Do you have any tools that you were using to actually get customers to give you feedback, survey thing or live chat? I mean, anything that's sort of more tangible in how you actually got the feedback from customers early on?
Early on, it was super manual. I mean, it was literally pick up the phone and call or email. And I think a lot of people are afraid of that, which is like, oh man, I got 100 email addresses, and what tool can I use to sort of capture input from all those people? And we were just looking to say, like, how long does it take to call 100 people? Like, what else am I doing? I mean, if it takes a week, it takes a week. If it takes 2 weeks, it takes 2 weeks. So I mean, it really was that. It was really just nose to the grindstone, sit down and do the hard things. And I think now we automate a lot of that. Now at the bottom of support requests, we capture input and feedback and these sorts of things. And now we email out surveys to our customers. But in the early days, it was just hustle. And I think like a lot of people are afraid of hustle, and they look at sort of, what's the magic bullet on these things? And my advice is just like do it. Like, just do the hard thing. Just pick up the phone and call. If you call 5 people a day about your product, like if you spend 8 in the morning to 10 in the morning making phone calls every day, like over the course of the year, you've talked to a lot of customers, and it really didn't eat that much into your day. So
tiny habits to get yourself going, and it becomes sort of a ritual and a lot easier to do. Totally agree with you about just doing the work and picking up the phone and making the phone call. As folks know, I come from a car sales background, so nothing gets any more aggressive than that. When there's nobody walking through the lot on a 300-degree July day and you just have to walk out and find people, it's not fun, but it certainly helps grow your thicker skin. What is any future or anything that you can sort of give us some insight into about what's next for Flywheel? What kind of new features or functions you might be adding?
Yeah, the major features we've been talking about for a long time with people, and that is bulk plans is the big next one, which is the ability to buy multiple sites at a time. We talk to agencies and designers, and about half of them want nothing to do with hosting, and they just pass it through to their customers, and that's where we're good at now. And about half of them want to pay for the hosting and charge their customers, and that's where bulk plans is good for. And so that's the big next thing. Affiliate program, as we mentioned. Staging sites is another major one, and then we've got a ton of other things sort of in the product roadmap that we get really excited about. Again, we think about product, they think differently than any other hosting company out there. I mean, again, we're trying to solve problems, and so we've talked to a ton of customers who are like, man, if we could do this, that would be amazing. And so.
What do you use to bucket all those ideas? Are you using a Trello, just a simple whiteboard? Where are you throwing all those ideas and sort of voting them up as you go? Yeah,
we use Trello to manage our development process, so they kind of go into a bucket in there. We use Evernote to do a ton of stuff as well, so the whole team sort of in Evernote, and a lot of them sort of funnel through that. But yeah, I mean it is actually hard to kind of distill what those are, but we've got a ton of cool ideas, and so those are probably the big three, and then beyond that there's a ton of stuff down the road.
Let's take a step outside of WordPress real quick. You do a whole heck of a lot of other stuff, and you've launched a few other things. To our good friend Garrett Moon a couple weeks ago, where he actually mentioned the publication Silicon Prairie, and you got Big Omaha starting tomorrow. What's your involvement in all that stuff? And by God, you don't have to be in Silicon Valley, I guess, anymore.
Yeah, so we're in Omaha, Nebraska, and probably when I started my first company, the WordPress design development firm, about 8 years ago, we looked at the world and said, we're in Omaha, Nebraska. We don't want to move somewhere else. So how do we surround ourselves with people like us? We're this kind of cool, fun, software company that you might see in other places around the country. Surely there's other people like us around. And as it turns out, there were. And so one of the ways we kind of coalesced those people was to start a publication called Silicon Prairie News. And it's just a blog that highlights entrepreneurs and innovators and startup companies in the Silicon Prairie, the areas in and around kind of Omaha and Des Moines and Kansas City. Excuse me. And so that was it. And through that we've run a dozen large-scale conferences as well around the same topic. You mentioned Big Omaha comes up this week. We run it every May, and we bring in pretty big-name entrepreneurs to really just share their story with the 700 or 800 people in the audience. And this year we have Evan Williams from Twitter, and we have Kevin Rose from Dig, and we have Google Ventures, and we have a whole lineup of folks. And over the years we've had some pretty cool people as well. And so through all this, sort of just building this community of entrepreneurs and startups in the middle of the country. And so that's been a big part of certainly my life and my partners and everybody for the last 5 or 6 years.
It's pretty amazing. Even starting the publication, the blog, Silicon Prairie, that's the same sort of thing, right? It's like throwing a server in the closet and saying, okay, we're going to be a hosting company today. Let's get going. You had your first blog post. You had a team, maybe, of people that you kind of gathered with to get this idea off the ground. What was that like? How long did that take till actually you saw the light at the end of the tunnel of that growing?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure we're at the light at the end of the tunnel stage on that yet, but but Silicon Prairie News as well. I think Silicon Prairie News has 10 or 12 people now, and I no longer run it. We've kind of I've transitioned out of that, but it started my partner Jeff Sabatsky and I in that it was our passion, it was our labor of love, was to write for this blog and highlight these people. We used to say, we would go around and stick a camera in front of somebody's face and say, tell us what you're working on, like what is interesting that you're doing, and then we would share those stories. And neither, I'm a computer science major, he's a finance and banking major, like neither of us are journalists, we just did it. And what you find in blogging, and I think podcasting is probably much the same, which is Lots of people do it or want to do it or say they're going to do it, and then they write like 3 blog posts or they do like 3 podcasts, and then they're done. And I think the thing that made Silicon Prairie News successful was the fact that we just stuck with it, and it was a big part because we were really passionate about it. And so, that simple act of just continuing to do it built this community over time. And listen, I talk a lot about, we created a demand for startups in the Midwest. Like, nobody was talking about startups before we were in and around kind of Omaha and the Midwest here, and now they really are. And now people identify, Garrett identifies as being part of the Silicon Prairie, which is really, really pretty cool. But you kind of got to take like one step at a time for like a long time before you get there.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's great advice. You just got to do the work, like we said before, and stick with it. I mean, I know I haven't hit 100 episodes yet on this podcast, but we have 200 videos that we've done for the studio sort of web show that we do, and it's just a lot of work, and it just takes time for it to finally start to come to fruition. And in the beginning, you're just talking to nobody. You're talking to one other person, and then eventually, the folks start coming in. So it's amazing stuff. What's the biggest challenge you're facing right now at Flywheel?
The biggest challenge, a week ago was that we didn't have enough people to kind of do what we needed to do, and so we're working on sort of solving that problem. I would say the biggest challenge long term for us is staying focused on what we do and what we do best, and not. It's really easy to get caught up in the noise of it all, and just, the market is really huge. Our customers love the product. Our customers are sharing the product. The customers, it's sort of like, how do you maintain a focus on the customer and the product, and bring your whole team on that. Like, get your whole team around this idea that this is our singular focus, and if we do this really, really well, if we're true to ourselves and do what sort of execute on our plan, then that's the way to kind of build a big business over time. And that's really hard. It's really hard with new people. It's really hard with lots of stuff going on. It's really hard with new competitors and stuff come along all the time, and it's hard to get caught up in that, or hard to not get caught up in that. And I'd say that's like the major thing is just this sort of like singular focus on doing what we do best.
Do you think the noise is amplified in the WordPress space specifically? I mean, I'm sure I already know that the noise in hosting is there because it's hosting and everyone's got something to say about hosting. But then you kind of drill down into the WordPress world, and it seems like there's just so much other stuff going on. I mean, do you find it a little bit more difficult in the WordPress space versus if you were just hosting, I don't know, just plain HTML pages?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the WordPress space. I mean, but you get this in any community, right? And we, in lots of ways, are a new entrant to the community, so you get that, and that's fine. And we want to be a good and productive member of multiple communities. So the design community, the WordPress community, the hosting community, whatever it is. And so it's sort of balancing a singular focus on what we do and do best with the fact that we need to be sort of visible and productive members of the community. And so it does sort of get echoed in that way. But again, the market is huge, and the world is massive, and WordPress is massive. It's really hard to wrap your head around 1 in 5 websites. And so the world is a big place, and I think there's room for lots of great players, and we aim very much to be one of those.
Chris Lemma just recently said that don't be afraid of competition. There's still room for folks to compete, and you might want to launch an e-commerce plugin, even though there's a whole bunch of them out there. There's still an opportunity to capture your particular audience. Do you have any parting advice for anyone who wants to throw their first server in a closet and perhaps install cPanel and say, we're going to set out to be a better fill-in-the-blank WordPress host?
No, it's great. I think that's fine, and I think that's like that in any industry. And my advice is whether it's hosting or whether it's dog sitting, it's how do you be 10x better than the next person. And think about that by whatever definition. And in hosting, it inevitably comes down to like speed and these sorts of things. But if it's an e-commerce plugin, like how are you 10x better than the next guy? How are you differentiated in some way? Whether maybe that's just brand, right? Flywheel's got a beautiful brand. Our brand and the way that we carry ourselves is majorly differentiated than HostGator, as an example. And it may seem superficial, but that's a thing. And so whether it's hosting or whether it's sort of whatever product that you want to get into, so I always like this mindset around being sort of like 10x better. Somebody wrote the other day about in any sufficiently large market, there's room at the bottom for like really big companies as well, and they use CRM as an example. Salesforce is a $10 billion a year company, and yet sort of upstart CRM companies happen all the time, and many of them will be billion-dollar companies, even though there's this massive player. And in any market, there's sufficient room, I think, for people that are differentiated in some way to sort of capture a passionate group of users around that. And that's kind of that'd be my advice for anybody. Competition. My restaurant software company didn't have any competition that to speak of, and it wasn't even that much fun because you never like rolled out a feature and were like, yeah, they don't have that. I mean, they didn't have anything. So like now at least when we see competition do things, we're like, oh.
You were just about to say, take that WP Engine. I'm just kidding.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're a great competitor, and I think that we have a huge amount of respect for what they've done and what they've built, and it's good to have that, and it's good at the end of the day. The best, the person that is the recipient of that is the end user because it sort of pushes innovation, I think.
Yeah, it's a tremendous answer, and I'm not going to ask any more formal questions after that. Was a great answer. I mean, I feel like I'm charged up and ready to go with what we're doing. Do the work, right, and do it better. Set out to, competition is okay, right? Competition is needed, right? If like you said in the restaurant example, if there was no competition, we'd all kind of be just doing the same thing, lemming along, and not getting anything done, innovative anyway. Let's jump into the second segment of the show. Talk about what's in your toolbox. I think you kind of answered some of this before, but do you have any software or hardware that you use to get through your day? Something that might be not as known or public as like an Evernote or a Gmail?
One of the things that I absolutely love is Boomerang for Gmail. Boomerang is a plugin for Gmail. I think I pay for it. There's a free version, and it allows you to kind of bring emails back to your inbox. So I can email Matt, and if you don't respond in 4 days, it brings it back to my inbox. And that to me, I'm sort of anal retentive around inbox zero. I don't ever get there, but like I want to, and it's the one thing that allows me to do that. Like I can send you an email and it goes away, and I can remove it from my inbox. And if you don't respond, if it's actionable, then it comes back to me in 4 days. I'd say that from a workflow perspective, for me at least in my life, what I do with email is massive.
That's awesome. I've never heard of that. I'm going to check that out.
It's a lot like what's the Mailbox on the iPhone. So yep. Mailbox on the iPhone allows you to do similar things. This is just a plugin for Gmail that does something similar.
Yeah, I know what I typically when I send out an email that I know I need a response on, whether it's booking a show or negotiating with a client or something like that, it goes right on my follow-up list and my wonder list. So this might be an interesting little bit that can save me that sort of extra step, if you
Sure.
will. Let's jump into the lightning round and ask you a series of quick questions, and you'll have a series of quick answers. What's the one plugin you cannot live without?
Oh, Advanced Custom Fields.
Wow, nice. Not a lot of people recommend that one, but I'm glad to hear it. What's the best business or WordPress book you've ever read?
Oh, man. I'm big on teams. Tribal Leadership is a fantastic book. I can't remember the author of it. It was about building tribes within organizations, and I truly believe that teams outperform individuals every day. So, yeah.
Nice. What's a quote that you live or run your business by?
man. I don't know. Like, we mentioned it. We touched on it earlier. I mean, I don't. It's not a quote, but like I read a lot of Paul Graham, and Paul Graham, founder of Y Combinator, and that idea around do things that don't scale is really resonates with us now, and it's sort of like something that we're sort of using a lot. And so I'd say that, right? Like, do things that don't scale is just an awesome piece of advice.
I like that, and that's probably what takes your best business and career advice you ever received. What's the longest a client project has ever taken when you were back in the days of designing sites or developing sites?
Well, we did a lot of custom software engineering, software development as well, and those projects would take like 6, 8, 12 months. So a lot of them would drag on, but
nice. If you had to switch to another CMS, or maybe perhaps host another CMS, what would it be?
Oh man. There's a lot of talk around. Man, that's really. Ghost is probably the one that's most interesting to me. I haven't spent a lot of time looking at things because a lot of them Joomla's not interesting, Drupal's not interesting. It would be something like Ghost, I'd say.
What about Expression Engine?
We looked at it years ago for client projects, and just never super got into it. It would be on the list. As we look at it for Flywheel, we're hyper focused on WordPress. In the way future, if we could be experts at something, maybe we would do it, or if it was sufficiently big. I don't actually think that anything will come along and be big. Yeah. Yeah.
Who should I interview next?
Oh, who should you interview next?
Paul Graham.
Paul Graham would be great. I don't know.
Do you have anybody using WordPress that they're just like CEO level, but they love the WordPress software? It enables them to run and produce revenue stream, but they're not into WordPress like we are. I'm trying to find somebody like that knows and loves WordPress, that can give us a perspective of sort of the general user, but not like us, you and I. If anybody has that, go ahead.
I'll get back to you. Yeah, I don't know.
Somebody like that, it's mattreport@gmail.com or mattreport.com/contact. Let me know. What's the one question I didn't ask you that I should have?
Why did you start companies in the first place? That was a question that a lot of people always do. The answer for me is not because I had some great idea or because I was interested in even doing consulting or development work. It was that I hated my job so much that it was the only option. I had this corporate soul-sucking job, and and I sort of at that time came with this idea that life's too short to sit in a cube and hate your job, and so I just sort of quit. And WordPress and web development was the thing that I could fall back on, and that sort of turned into a company. And sort of no intentions at that point of being kind of an entrepreneur in that way, but that was it.
Awesome. Well, this has been a great interview, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to do it. Lots of amazing advice. I love doing the work, and a lot of folks get caught up on what's the easiest formula I can do to improve my heat maps and click-through rates. Like, no, man, pick up the phone, call these people, interact. Where can folks find you on the web to say thanks?
We're at getflywheel.com. And you can email me if you want questions, dusty@getflywheel.com, or at DustyD on Twitter.
And you're looking to hire some folks as well. I'd imagine they can reach you the same way, right?
Yeah, all the positions are available on our website, getflywheel.com, and always looking for great people. So engineers, support, marketing, across the board. So
amazing stuff. Well, man, thanks a lot. Everybody listening, mattreport.com/subscribe. Join the mailing list. If you want to keep the show ad-free, it's mattreport.com/join. Join the membership of the Matt Report Pro entrepreneur community, all chatting away in the forums and having great discussions every month about their different business topics, challenges, and goals. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks.